You are listening to the Success Leaves Clues podcast,
where we're having conversations with regular people doing outstanding and legacy-changing things in corporate America and entrepreneurship.
If you're looking for the blueprint to help you make less mistakes on your journey to freedom and ultimate purpose, then this is the podcast for you.
And now, here's your host, Dr. K. Dr. K.
Hey, I got with me today Kyle Livingston. Look, he's a coach. He is a mentor for businesses. He's made multiple seven figures himself, and he is the founder of the seven-figure industry.
What's up, man? I'm stoked to be here.
Hey, glad to have you. So you said you got a new setup. I like the brick. You see, I'm a fan of brick too.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I was actually, I was working from home yesterday, working out of the office, and dude, I just wasn't as productive as I wanted to be yesterday. And so last night I hopped on Airbnb and I actually found a place out at here in Tennessee. It's a river house or like a lake house. Uh-huh. And I'm sitting down and I'm like, I got my interview. I go to pull my tripod and my microphone and I'm like, shoot, I forgot it. And so my phone is currently sitting on a bottle opener catch for bottle caps. Yep. And I'm out on a deck in a patio, but the brick worked great. So I'm like, this is where we're at, man. This is where we're at.
I love it, man. That's ingenuity. It's creative and not letting anything stop you. I mean, you still look great. You still sound great.
Thanks, man.
And the point of it is we got to keep going. And stuff like that happens to us in business all the time. And you could probably touch on it better than me. But what happens when something like that happens in business, with you as a coach?
Well, man, I always look at it like the best business owners are just a form of MacGyver in one way, shape, or form, right? Like I saw, as I was setting this up over the last 20 minutes, I remember seeing a video of a guy, and the guy was doing like a couple $100,000 a month at the time in his business, and he's at the foot of his bed with 10 books stacked on top of each other, sitting on a stool, and that was his recording studio for probably 2 years, yeah. And dude, when people run across this stuff in business, like you just got to realize there's always a solution. You just haven't found it yet. You just haven't had the creativity or the time or the perspective or the inputs to figure out the solution. But there's always a solution. Sometimes it's right in front of you. Sometimes you got to get really creative, but there's always a solution.
Yeah, you got to kind of be open for that and look for that, because you can easily find a reason not to do something, right?
Oh yeah. Those are the easiest reasons to find, man. Those are the easiest reasons to find. Dude, at one point I had tongs in the kitchen. I grabbed and they was holding up one side of my phone, and I had the spatula on the back, but it was too low. Like I've tried all sorts of crazy stuff just to get this shot, dude. But ingenuity in business will literally make you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, if you just look, not solving this isn't a problem. Like, not solving this it's not going to work. Like I can't not solve this. My the livelihood of my family's on the line. I can't not solve this problem. The livelihood of myself, of my children, of my future, of my legacy's on the line. Like I can't not solve this. I just have to figure it out. And if you go with that mindset, it's amazing the things that you're like, oh, I never thought about doing it this way. Let me try this and see if it works. And you get a little closer, and you try it again, and you just get a little closer. And that's the game, man.
What keeps people from? I know a lot of people have ideas, right? But what keeps them stuck? What keeps them from pursuing those ideas or even trying something like that?
Well, man, I heard a quote one time. It said the richest place in the world, the wealthiest place in the world is the graveyard. Yeah. And I think from what I've seen, the one thing that stops people more often than not is typically some type of fear, right? But that fear typically stems from some type of trauma. I know for me, I'll give you an example. 2016, I lost $200,000 in under 9 months. I had done really, really well, poured a bunch of money into a new business, lost a couple $100,000. And over the next 18 months or 2 years, I was terrified of spending money because I didn't know when I was going to get it back again. And so I thought if I spent it, I would lose it. And no matter what investment I'd put it in, no matter what vehicle I'd put it in, whether it was myself or my business or employees, et cetera, if I'd put money in something, then I was going to lose it, because that's what had happened at that one point. Dude, now I went the next 18 months living in this place of fear and scarcity because of the trauma of losing $200,000. Man, I probably lost another $200,000 or $300,000 just by being afraid. And dude, I tell people, like, if you are afraid and you don't do it, you're actually paying twice. And for me, I had to pay twice. I lost the money. I got the trauma. And then the other side of it was I lived in that trauma for 18 more months. So I actually paid twice. And that's never a good place to be in.
Got you. So what happened in the business that caused you to lose that money?
Oh, man. I would say the first thing was my ego. The number one thing was my ego, 100%. I had built and sold 2 successful brick and mortar businesses at that point. And then I had a third partnership where we took him out of the red and put him back in the black and then sold that one. Yeah. And so I came into this fourth company, dude. I thought my shit did not stink. I thought I knew everything, no matter what would happen. Again, I'd be able to solve it. And so first part was my ego. The second part was I wasn't doing the right things from the sense of like, this wasn't the direction I should be going, and I was forcing it. And I felt that from day one. And so there was a lot of friction immediately, which made it very difficult to get traction. But the biggest piece was that I stayed so focused inside of the day-to-day of my business. I never actually put on my CEO hat and was the CEO of the business. I was always the technician. And because of that, the business outgrew me, and it ended up collapsing because there was no one at the front driving the ship.
Got you. It makes me think about a book I read. It's called The E-Myth Revisited.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Great book.
Yeah, great book. But it just makes me think about that, because a lot of times we're good at the day-to-day. We're good at what we do, and that's why we started whatever business it is, whatever industry we're in. But, we have to kind of learn how to step back and also trust people, too, to do the job.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and that's a big one, too. People don't want to give up control. Like, you're really good at doing the thing. And you think no one else can be as good at doing the thing as I am. And that's just not true. That's just not true.
Goes back to the ego, right?
Goes back to the ego, man. Goes back to the ego. So it's a really bad place to be in when you let your ego drive. But if you're in that position right now, like if you're listening to this and you're in a spot where you're like, man, I'm at that place where I know I need to spend more time like on my business and not in my business. And I need to make that shift and transition from like technician and doing the things to being the owner. One of the biggest and most valuable exercises I have found is a time study. Like spend a week and just monitor what you do every day for 30 minutes. Dude, and you're going to be shocked at how much time you just end up wasting on stuff that you could just offload to, a VA, someone in the Philippines. I use Filipino VAs quite a bit. You can offload a lot of this stuff and start buying some of your time back. And so if you're in that place, start looking for opportunities of like, man, how can I buy these 3 hours back a day? And you'd be shocked at how much more money you can make because of that.
Man, that's important. And people got to find out, how they can get these VAs. So when you find a VA, are they already trained, or are they trained in like a general practice, and then you kind of tailor them to your business?
You can find either. Anybody who comes into your business isn't going to know how your business runs, right? Especially in the online world, the entrepreneurial world. Like your business is probably a hot freaking mess. Let's be honest. Okay. Your business is probably a little bit of a disaster. It's just the nature of business. And so more often than not, I've found that I have to have a really, really good, at least not even really, really good. I have to have some type of framework and training to give them when they onboard. Hey, this is what we do. This is how we do things. These are your expected roles and responsibilities. Here's a quick little Loom video on how you do these things. But what you'd have to do is after you do that little time study, you're like, man, I have these 4, 5, 6, 10 things I can give someone. Just spend the next, 2 hours on a Saturday morning, wake up a little early or whatever you need to do to get it done. But spend a couple hours just recording some of those things that you need to get done and just show the person how to do it. And then just give them the training and the videos so they can understand, like, this is what you want done. Here are your expectations. Here's the timeline as to when it needs to be done. But you got to set clear goals for them. So it's 2 things. It's setting clear goals, and it's also making sure that they have some type of training for them when you onboard.
Okay, so it's not really too different than onboarding any other employee or training up any other staff.
Not at all, man. Not at all. It's just simply a standard position that you'd bring on. And the same way you'd train a media buyer, you'd train a VA.
Yeah.
And you'd be shocked, man. I don't know if you actually know this, but in the Philippines, a lot of the people out there, dude, they have like master's degrees and like they're incredible at what they do. And especially for startups, like they're inexpensive. I pay my VA. She works with me full time. Dude, she basically runs my life. She's my executive assistant. I pay her like $1,300 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're talented. They're good at what they do, but they're lacking those opportunities in the Philippines. So that's why it's not like they're any less skilled, right?
Right. Not at all. Not at all. More often than not, they're a lot more skilled than a lot of the American workers I've worked with.
Right. Tell me a little bit about that transition in that 18 months, because, what I find, fear is probably the largest obstacle, for people. Mm-hmm. And it's hard enough to get started in entrepreneurship, let alone to have a setback or some failure. And I'm really amazed at how you pulled through that.
Thanks, man. So the transition for me during that 18 months, it was a couple things. It really started as me having to disconnect from the current situation. Because I was in a place where, dude, I was an emotional wreck. I was heartbroken. I lost the business. I was frustrated. I lost the money. I had a damaged and bruised ego. And so I really just needed to take some time and just de-stress and get away from it a little bit. And so I actually spent the next 4 months gutting and remodeling an RV that my wife and I went and traveled the US in for the next 2 years, which was awesome. So for me, I needed to take some time to disconnect and step away from stuff, and really, really make sure that where I'm going and where I'm putting my energy was actually what I wanted. And once I got alignment on okay, where I'm going and what I want is in alignment, that's when the fear started creeping in. That's when I started having to start make investments back into my business and make investments into people and rehire people and all these things. And the one thing that I had to do to really get through it, man, was to draw out who I had to become, who was worthy of the goals that I wanted. Mm. And then I began to use that as the filter to run my decisions through. But that didn't let the fear go away. That just told me who I had to become. Right. And so that gave me a destination and a goal. And then in the current present moment, I was still scared shitless, man. And so for me, what I had to do was I actually went down and I wrote down on a yellow notepad the worst case scenario. Okay. If I spent every dollar, I lost everything, I'd write down the worst case scenario, dude. And I would go as far as my realistically could take it. I would never be without a meal. Someone's always going to give me a meal. So going starving wasn't actually worst case scenario. It felt like it might be, but it wasn't in reality. And so what I did is I created a list of what's the actual reality of a worst case scenario. Would I have to live under a bridge in my RV for a little while? Would I had to eat ramen noodles for a couple months? What was the actual worst case scenario? So I took a yellow pad, I wrote all that stuff down. I sat down with my wife and I said, hey, look, we're going on this new venture. This is the goal. This is the person I have to become. This is the goals that we have. This is where we're going. This is where we are at. And here are all of the worst case scenario things that could happen between now and then. Are you okay with these things if they were to happen? And we sat down and we talked about it and we came to an agreement that, if these were to happen, it would be worth the destination as long as all these worst case scenario things were to happen and I wasn't going to get to the goal, right? I'd still become somebody who I was different than today. And that reward was worth going through all the troubles and going through all the dirty stuff. And so at the end of that piece of paper, we both signed it and we folded it away. And every time we started to get fearful or scared or afraid, I'd pull up that contract we made to ourselves and it's hey, here's all the shit we agreed to. Here's everything that we said would possibly happen. And nothing's really happening, but yet we're still afraid. So we can't be afraid because we've already told ourselves we're not going to be.
Wow, that's incredible, man, because a lot of times we make so many commitments to everybody and everything else. And I've never in my life thought about signing a contract with myself. You know what I mean? And you talk about accountability, and it's good that you have, a wife that can be your accountability partner and somebody to help, push you and you push her as well.
Yeah, man, 100%. 100%. And because like you said, dude, you do all this stuff for everyone else. And I see this happen in business a lot too. I literally watch business owners get beaten over the head by their employees, their financial advisors, their mentor here, their coach here, to do all these things for all these people and the impact and all that. But then they have $17 left at the end of the month. Okay. And it's bro, what are you doing? Make the contract with yourself to be profitable. Go be profitable and then go do everything else. And so I think contracts with yourself are really, really important. And that builds trust, that builds character, that builds integrity, not only with you, but with other people as well. Because if you can't keep promises to yourself, contracts that you've signed to yourself, there's no way you're able to show up and lead other people.
Yeah. You can't do it for anybody else.
Yep. 100%, man.
Yeah. So when you go into accepting a client, right, that you're going to coach or you're going to mentor and help them get to 7 figures, what is there a certain type of business that you like to work with? Is it service related, any kind of business? What are we looking for?
So typically at this stage who I work with are coaches and consultants.
Okay.
Online businesses, coaches and consultants. Typically I'm working with coaches and consultants who are at the 100K a month plus. So they're already at 7 figures. But leading up to this, I've had to coach a lot of people under the 85, 90K a month mark to get there. And I would say the biggest thing, man, for both, I could separate like online and brick and mortar pretty well because I've done both. The biggest thing for online entrepreneurs is to not get freaking distracted. Like distraction and shiny object syndrome is the biggest killer of online businesses I've ever seen, dude. Biggest. Yeah. Yep. And so people in the online world are drowning in opportunity. Like their businesses are failing because there's too many opportunities. Whereas if you think of like 2008, 2009, people were starving for opportunity. Yeah. But because there's so much opportunity, it's causing distraction and it's causing a decentralized business where you can't be focused. And it's like a floodlight. You know, that floodlight, this is kind of a cheesy analogy, man. Like one thing you'll learn about me is I have a ton of cheesy analogies. And so I was telling people, like,
but the good thing is, as soon as you said floodlight, I was thinking like being blinded by so many opportunities that you can't actually see where you're. I'm right there with you, Kyle.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so it's like a floodlight just shining in your face, man. Like you can't go anywhere. Yeah. And so you want to go the other direction. You want to have a laser pointing out. And you're like, I'm going right there. That's the sniper shot that I'm going to get from 500 yards out. I'm going right there, man. And when you can do that, that is the ultimate strength of an online business owner. I always joke around and I say shiny object syndrome. The acronym is SOS. And it's your body's way of saying, I don't know what I'm doing right now, so I'm going to go find something else to focus on. And so if focusing on the one thing for longer than you think is necessary, you'll eventually get to the goal. Like you can't focus on the same thing for 10 years and not hit your goal. It's just not possible.
Wow. And you're spot on with that because it's like, repetition, you're going to slowly get better. Even if you're the worst at it, I could be a horrible singer, but the more I keep trying to hit these notes, the more I keep perfecting it, going to, singing classes, all of this different stuff, eventually I'm going to get there, you know?
Yep. You suck at first. And if you do it for so long, you suck so much less that you might actually be considered good.
Kind of like my golf game.
Kind of like my golf game too, man. My buddy calls me up the other day. He goes, "Hey, bro, we're doing a pickup game tomorrow, and a bunch of friends are going to go out and play a little friendly tournament." I'm like, "Dude, unless you want to lose, do not put me on your team because I will lose all the balls." But I suck less than I did when I started, a few years back. So
yeah, there you go. And to somebody else who's probably just starting out, you're a pro, right?
I'm a pro.
You all kinds of tips.
Yeah, exactly, man. I only lost 17 balls that game. They lost 50. So who's a winner there? And then the other side of that, man, is like brick and mortar businesses. If you're a brick and mortar entrepreneur, the number one thing that I would say is just protect your margin. Because in brick and mortar, you have so many expenses every month that it's like it's the difference between like the Titanic and like a little lifeboat. The lifeboat can turn really easy and maneuver and shut down costs and raise costs. Like brick and mortar, you're fixed, man. And it's really hard to turn that boat. And so the biggest thing for you is to protect your margin and not let people berate you out of margin or let contractors or let salespeople or whoever dwindle that margin lower and lower and make sure that your processes and things are so tight that man, like if we go do this job or we go do this service or we provide this product, I know our margin's this fat. And your goal is to get the biggest margin you possibly can in business, whether you're brick and mortar or online.
Yeah. The same thing like you're saying, when you got this SOS or this shiny object syndrome, there's so much noise online. Yeah. And everybody's got the best way. I mean, even if you take something like working out, right?
Yep.
Somebody say, you got an intermittent fasting, don't fast. You got to eat 12 times a day, got to be vegan. No, you need protein, you need meat. Like, there's so much noise that you can't actually get to the goal. But I'm quite sure, like you were saying, Kyle, if you just pick one of those ways, it'll probably work for you.
Yeah, man. Well, let's use weight loss. Like, I'm not a big weight loss guy. It's not my genre, but let's use that as an example. You think about all the noise that's out there. You have intermittent fasting, you have portion control, you have keto, you have name any diet you could possibly imagine. Atkins diet back in the day where you had to pee on a stick. Remember all those? So think about it. The fundamental in any of those diets, think about a portion control. Rather than a portions being this big, they're this big. In intermittent fasting, instead of having 3 portions that equal this size, you have 2 portions that equal this size. In keto, right? You stopped cutting out all the dead calories. And so the caloric intake from here, it shrinks down a little bit to here. So the foundation of what you're doing, restricting caloric intake and restricting these things, it's the same thing. It's just packaged differently.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in business, man. Like, there are business fundamentals. You go listen to Zig Ziglar, you go listen to Brian Tracy, any of the greats from back in the day. Like, it's the same thing, just packaged differently. It's funny, man. I'm a believer. And I can go into the Bible and pull the success leaves clues. I can pull the clues out of the Bible that transpose into the foundational elements of business today. There are people repackaging into things today that are dude, that's literally thousands of years old, and you're trying to make it something new.
Yes.
And so it's understanding the fundamentals of the game, and then understanding everything else that you're being sold is just a skin on those fundamentals. That's it. Gotcha. And once you know that, you stop looking for that one thing that's going to make the difference. And you realize, if I just learn the things that like I have to do, I'm going to get to where I want to go.
Yeah. You're in this space and you say you got through this, this tough time, this 18 months by kind of transforming and becoming a different person. Did you have a mentor, or what did you do to actually become somebody else? Because that sounds easy, right? but most of us we wouldn't be who we are if we could just instantly become somebody else.
Dude, so yeah, I'll tell you exactly everything that I did. Mentors I hired, whole 9 yards. But a preface to this is when you become something different, you go through a metamorphosis. And you could use any analogy you want. You could go coal turn into diamonds. You could go, caterpillar turning to butterfly, whatever. But the process, there's pressure. There's places where you feel constricted. There are places where you're in more pain than you think it's worth, because you're walking through that fire and having to trim off all the fat and all the things that just don't serve you anymore. I think a couple of things that I want to give to the audience is starts with a bit of a warning, because nobody told me this. And I grew up in the hood. Like, I grew up in Southern California. Compton and Watts was like 7 and 8 on the most dangerous cities. Where I grew up was like number 3 and 4. And it was awful, man. And so I'm thankful nobody told me this, but I wish somebody would have. Was like, you're going to lose everybody in your life right now that's at this level with you. Right? And you have to be okay with it, because the more and more you try and go back to them, the more and more you're going to go back to a place that's comfortable, not serving you, not who you want to be. And so for me, it was like I had to shed everybody out of my life, because those are the people that were creating the patterns and the habits. Like, hey, let's go drinking on the weekend, or hey, let's go to this club, or hey, let's go. It's like, no, dude, I don't do that anymore. I can't. The new version of myself, the calling that I see in my future, I can't do these things. And so a lot of the people in my life are no longer in my life, but they've been replaced with people who are at the level I'm at or higher, which is really what I wanted to begin with. So yeah, man, I literally I spend more, not spend, I invest more into myself with coaches, mentors, every opportunity that I can. And every time I feel stuck, I'm going to go find someone to invest into so I can get the help, because it's actually investing into me. And so I've done everything from courses, programs, one-on-one mentorship with people. I literally did everything that I could. And I think this is where I'm very different from most people, I'll tell you a little bit of a scenario. So that 18 months happened, and I needed to get into this program. The program was just shy of 10K.
Yeah.
And I had a marketing agency at the time, and just the way it was set up, man, I just didn't have 10K in cash. And honestly, I wasn't doing that great. We were doing okay. I just lost a big client, had a business partnership go south, whole bunch of stuff happening. Just didn't have the money, but I knew I needed it. And so I have come from like a construction background. And so I called the guy on the phone, and the guy's like, hey man, this is what we're going to help you out with. We're going to help you with your mindset. We're going to help you this, and that. It will help you with marketing and some other things.
Yeah.
I said, all right, man, this sounds exactly like what I need. What's the investment? He's like, it's $9,800. I'm like, cool, give me 2 weeks. I don't have 10K. I have no idea where I'm getting 10K, but I know in 2 weeks that I'm going to go find 10K so I can do this.
Yeah.
And there have been times where like I didn't have the money and I just figured it out, right? Kind of like this, where my phone's sitting right now on this bottle opener catch. Like I didn't have a tripod and I figured it out. And so going back to our first part of our conversation, like resourcefulness in business, man, is probably the most undervalued asset somebody can have. Like, how resourceful can you be to do what you need to do? So I was like, all right, I got 14 days. I need 10K. How can I do this? I went on Craigslist and I searched gigs, and I found somebody that would let me remodel their bathroom. So I spent the next week and a half, 2 weeks remodeling this person's bathroom, made $12,000, paid 10K, had $2,000 that paid for all the materials and everything that went into it, made $0 for 2 weeks. And $0, dude. My wife is like, bro, what are you doing? She's like, we literally have no money. You're going to go invest 10K in this thing right now. I was like, yep. She's like, okay, I trust you.
Okay. Yeah.
And 12 days later, I made $24,000. Because I went and did the things that they told me to do. They said, stop looking at it this way, look at it this way, offer yourself this way. Cool.
Yeah, it's something about once you stretch yourself. And I grew up poor, like you're saying, I didn't have nothing. I don't know what part of Tennessee you're in, but I got family in Nashville. I'll be there for Thanksgiving, to visit.
Nice. I'm right outside of Nashville and Franklin, man.
Yeah. So it's just, but when you come from that environment, right, that poverty mindset, you want to have a grip on everything, because you don't know when the next one's coming. Like you said, when you don't want to keep investing, you don't know if you're going to lose it.
Right.
And but then once you get to a place, you're like, hey, I can make this 10K, I can invest it. And then you see the return on that. It just becomes so much easier. Mm-hmm. And then money just becomes a intangible thing, right? It's now something that is always going to cycle through your life. Literally.
Like I'm up at like I said, a lake house today, and I'm just looking out, right? And like, just from my perspective, looking past my phone, I can probably see, I don't know, dude, $10 million.
Yeah.
Just sitting here, got all the houses, got the boats on the lake. Like, this is just from what I can see. I can physically see from this balcony right now, $10 million.
You're right.
And it's like, how can I, we're so small compared to what's out there. If you're listening right now, actually a little exercise for your audience, man. If you're listening, I want you to go look at the visual difference. Go to Google and look at the visual difference between $1 million, $1 billion, and $1 trillion. And you will quickly realize $1 million is literally nothing. It is literally nothing. You can fit it in a shoe. It is nothing, dude.
Yeah.
And so once you realize that, and you realize like, holy cow, like $1 billion isn't that much money either. And $1 trillion is just insane. Like $1 trillion is just, it's wild. Go look it up. Just Google visual difference between $1 million and $1 billion. It'll be one of the first ones that pop up. Look for the dude standing next to pallets of cash. But you'll realize very quickly.
Is it you, Kyle? Are you the guy?
I might be. That's a shameless plug. No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
But it just goes to show you, man, like we are so tremendously small. Mm-hmm. And if we just provide more value, the money will literally come to us. It's not like some esoteric woo-woo thing. It's just, hey, I solved this problem. I'll give you an example. One of my clients, they have a large YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And my fee to them was well over 6 figures to work with me for a year. And people are like, man, how do you charge people that much? I'm like, because I've made them millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I just simply went in, made a few tweaks because they had a ton of cash laying on the floor, made millions of bucks. So my minuscule fee looks like nothing to them, but for me, it was life-changing, right? I can get $100,000 from a single client. That's life-changing money.
Yeah.
but it was because of the value that I provided. And so, yeah, man, we're very small creatures in a very, very big world. And there's a lot of money out there to be had. And people just need to understand that the thing that typically holds you back between where you're at and the goals that you have and the things that you want are the 6 inches between your ears, dude. Like, you and I grew up broke.
Yeah.
What was the money belief that you had growing up that you had to shift and change?
Well, a whole bunch of them. Well, one, I mean, to give you an example, right? Like, we would drive across town to save maybe 2-3 cents a gallon in gas when you probably spent more than that driving to the next gas station. That's the kind of example that I'm talking about. I'm like, you could have just got the gas, you know? So.
You know, it's funny. I actually, I see some of those things show up in my life, right? Like, I drive an Audi, so it takes premium fuel. And I find myself like, oh, I'm gonna drive to Costco to get gas. It's like, dude, Costco's like 5 miles more away. Like, why am I going to Costco? I don't need to go to Costco. Just stop at this freaking gas station. And that's stuff I still deal with today. And it's auditing how you're feeling in those moments. Like, I don't need to make that decision, but like, my subconscious made that decision for me. And I had to take my conscious and be like, no, that is a wrong way of thinking. Yeah. Right? If I take 20 minutes to drive to Costco and back, I'm probably going to stop in Costco because I'm a Costco fiend. There's another hour of wasted time. Plus, I'll probably spend $300 in Costco buying some random stuff I don't need rather than just getting the freaking gas, right? And so it all starts with this subconscious programming of like, oh, well, this X says this, so go do this. And it's like, you have to take control of that every time. And, you know, going back to what the word says, like, you got to take your thoughts captive. And that happens to be in everything. It's like, that comes in my mind. It's like, nope, that's not how I think anymore. And then reprogramming it back to being something different. And I'm going to tie that back into what I was saying earlier of like identity document of like, who do I have to become? And one of those things was like, I make decisions from a place of this, from a place of abundance, not a place of scarcity. And so if I'm making this decision to go get gas from a place of abundance, do I really care where I get gas from?
No.
Not at all. It does not matter. I don't care if it's $3. I don't care if it's $30. It's abundance.
Yeah. Like I said, when you talk about abundance and just keeping on with the gas, right? So when gas was $1, some change, you would look at premium and you would say, man, I don't want to buy this luxury vehicle because I don't want to be paying $1.89. Well, then now regular gas is $3, 3 and some change. And it's double what premium would have been. So was there ever a lack? Was there ever scarcity? It never really existed in your life. You could have just
never existed.
Had what you wanted.
Exactly. Yeah, man. Scarcity literally only exists in the 6 inches between your ears. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And, you know, to the audience, like, don't ever feel, if you're listening to this, like, don't ever feel like, oh, well, Dr. K and Kyle, like, they have it, like, they've figured it all out. It's like, dude, no, I literally had this internal conversation about Costco last week. Yeah, and I promise you, I don't need to go and figure out how much the gas is. Like, that's not, but it still shows up in my life from like when I was a child, because my mom would do the same thing. Bro, she'd go to the gas station and I would be like, what are you doing? And she'd put like $3 in her tank. I'm like, why are you're going to have to come back and spend more. You're going to spend $3 to come back and get more gas.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I was having, I have very similar conversations. Childhood, the same. I mean, you go in the store, you buy Toastums instead of Pop-Tarts. And I'm like, you saved a quarter. Like, why couldn't we get the Pop-Tarts? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
We saved 25 cents. I'm quite sure. I mean, even being, you know, poor, we weren't dirt poor. You know what I mean? We could have had something.
Right. You could have bought the Pop-Tarts.
We could have brought the Pop-Tarts. I'm sure we could have Pop-Tarts. But, you know, that's, it is what it is, but it's now a, you know, mindset shift. I don't know if you have any kids, Kyle, but, you know, now training the next generation on how to think and like you said, what the Bible actually says about abundance and how you can live in that space instead of in a space of scarcity.
Bro, did you know money is referred to as in the Bible? It's the second most referred to anything in the Bible is money, right? And think about this just as one verse: be fruitful and multiply.
Multiply, yeah,
right. Well, it's not just talking about children. Talking about everything. Talking about trees, talking about grass, talking about animals, talking about kids, talking about money, talking about goats, everything. Be fruitful and multiply. Yeah. And it's so important, man. Like abundance, I think is probably understanding abundance is probably one of the like secret weapons some entrepreneurs have. It's like, no, dude, it's out there. Like Grant Cardone's like, who's got my money?
Yeah.
You know, who's got my money? Who's got my money? Because it's out there. It exists.
Yeah. I do the same thing. Like you were saying, sitting at the lake house. I mean, you drive by any major street in any, major city, and you're going to see car dealership. Audi's right next to BMWs, right next to Mercedes. And each parking lot, like you said, is probably a $10 million worth of cars in each parking lot that's lining up this entire street.
Yep. 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, 50 million, 80 million.
On one street. Yeah.
One street. Yeah, dude. So I grew up in Southern California, and I'd go walking down Newport Coast on the beach. We'd be looking up at these massive houses, and it's like, what? How? What the? I'm growing up in Hemet, super poor, and it's like, dude, I took a bath in the pool water last night, and these dudes are living in a $200 million mansion. Like, what the hell? And I just realized it's like the only thing that's different. Like I put my pants on the same way they do. Like they put their shirts on the same way I do. Sure, their shirts cost a lot more money than my shirts, but they still put it on the same way I do. Most of them are first generation millionaires. Like it's nothing. It's not like it's a lucky thing. And that's what people don't understand. It's like those people figured it out. They cracked the code. And if I went and asked them how they got there, they could probably walk me step by step how they got there.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, that's the thing is like those going back to the mentors and whatnot. There's this book, I think it's by Benjamin Hardy. I could be wrong, but it's called Willpower Doesn't Work. And he talks about how, if willpower were the driving force for success, everybody would be rich and skinny. Right.
Yeah.
And because willpower doesn't work, you have to create an environment to be conducive to success. And one of the best ways to change your environment is to invest in something that's uncomfortable. And so for me, the breakthrough really happened when I decided I was going to go remodel that bathroom for the 10 grand and then just give over the 10 grand. I invested more than I could, more than I was even ready to invest, more than I was able to invest. And it shifted my environment. Now I had to start thinking of like, man, do I want to get out of bed right now? Or do I want to sleep in? Dude, I got $10,000 in the line. I'm getting my ass out of bed. Do I want to do these things? Do I want to think this way? I got money. I have to. And I think the catalyst to all of this for me was investing into a high ticket program that made me super uncomfortable because that changed my environment to be like, oh man, I got to do something different.
I'm with you. I've done it too. I've invested in several. Like you said, I like to stay, uncomfortable, stretching myself, growing, and also learning from somebody who's got the proven model. You talk about the houses in California. I'm not going to try to crack the code all over again when I can go to somebody who's already done it, pay them for, the speed, shorten the gap and help me get there. And also, keep me on track if I'm going in the wrong direction. Somebody that can, pull you back and say, hey, look, you're going a little bit off track. Like you said about the shiny objects. Hey, these are some distractions. That's powerful to have in your life, and they can definitely help you get there a lot faster.
Yeah, man. 100%. I'm always looking to see how I can do things faster, better, more efficient. One of the best ways is getting someone in your life to walk you through it.
So walk me through this, Kyle. I have a small business. I have a YouTube channel, and I'm looking to work with you. How do I go about doing that?
Yeah, man. So for me, the best way to do it is like find me on socials. Like I'm not the guy that's like, hey, go to this funnel and opt in and like just find me on socials and reach out and just have a DM with me. Like if you want some templates and some things for you to be able to track your numbers and be able to make decisions from a data-driven place and not an emotional place, you can go get those for free. Those are at fortifiedtoolbox.com, fortifiedtoolbox.com. Totally free for your listeners, man. But if you want to find me on socials, I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube as well. It's 7-Figure Kyle. Reach out. And if you're in a place where you're looking to grow the business or be able to expand your profitability or figure out how to get out of the business as the visionary, we can definitely chew through a lot of that stuff too. So.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. And thanks for the offer, for the free materials for the audience. I'll put that link in the description. Also, your socials, I'll put that in there for them too. I appreciate it.
Cool. This has been great, man.
Look, you are not only a 7-figure business owner, but you're teaching other people how to do it. So I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate you being here with us. I got something that I like to do on every episode. So the show's called Success Leaves Clues. And so I like to point out a couple of clues that I noticed throughout our conversation that helped you be successful. And I'm quite sure the audience will pick up on some of their own clues.
Love it, man.
So one of the things I notice is the way you overcome fear and the way you look at fear. So instead of looking at the fact that, hey, what am I risking now? What am I afraid of now? But what could I also lose in the future? You talk about it being, 2 times that you have to pay for something. I think that's important to acknowledge whenever we're stuck in a place and we want to pass up an opportunity. Another thing you touched on, and I don't know if the audience caught it, but it's your faith, man. And I think without having, God in your life and something, bigger and something driving you, and not to mention the ultimate manual, that you can reference and stuff like that. I think that's, powerful. And then I want to also give credit to your wife, man. She's, somebody that, can help you and sit down with you to analyze something, write out a contract to yourself. That's incredible. I'm about to hit my wife up tonight and we're going to do something similar.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. That'll be cool. Keep me posted how that goes, man.
I will.
Love that. Well, dude, I appreciate you being able to, I want to just honor you. And for the listeners, like, make sure you give Dr. K a follow, a like, a subscribe, share his stuff. Like what you are doing, man, just honestly, from the bottom of my heart, pulling and extrapolating all this information out of all these people and taking time out of your day and out of your life and out of your business to be able to put all this together and get it edited and get it put out. Like, I know there's a lot that goes into it. So dude, I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to do that and be able to extract all this wisdom from the world, because it's awesome. And the world needs a lot more people like you, bro.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. But I want to remind everybody out there, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. Until next time.
Cool. See you guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Success Leaves Clues podcast.
Be sure to follow Dr. K on Instagram at Dr. K Washington or the podcast page at Success Leaves Clues Podcast. We'll see you here next time.